Hello.
Welcome to the Bible Study Girl podcast. This is Sarita. You probably know me as Bible Study Girl. And I didn't say hello, I said welcome, but the hello you heard at the top was the executive producer of this podcast, Bible Study Brother.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Bible Study Brother, also known as Icarus Gray, over at Gray Area Anime. But this is the most wonderful podcast of your day, and we're back. Please listen to my new single, They Say, out now on all the platforms that you can listen to them on. But today I take the reins because we are doing our blog recap series where we go through and discuss the blogs that you can find on BibleStudyGirl.com by clicking the magnifying glass and typing into the line there. And what you'll type is, what is forgiveness part 2? If you want to read along with us, it makes it way easier. There are 3 years worth of blog posts on there for you guys. So we don't want you wafting in a sea of everything. Well, we kind of do, but we don't want you to get lost in that sea. So follow us on this guided tour and read along on what is forgiveness part 2. How we do these blog recaps is normally we get the perspective from me first of what I felt when I read it, because as my sister often jokes, it is sometimes my first time reading the blog post. Not always, but sometimes it is.
Quite often. And I'm not mad at it. I do want you to know that. I think it's hilarious. I'm not mad at it because I also realized that means that message wasn't for you. I'm not one of those people like that feels like everything I do, you ain't gotta read it. No, I don't.
And but I've learned that I do, and I did.
But one thing about me though is like, I'm goofy. I joke a lot, and I'm always going for the joke. Like I always have to. So that's what it is, brother. It's not shade. It's truly like I have to go for the joke because it's there.
She does.
Low hanging fruit, if you will. Go ahead.
So, like I said, normally it would be me giving you my perceptions, and then Bible Study Girl would give her perceptions on where she is now, alongside where she was when she wrote it, and kind of what directed her steps, and just kind of see where the growth is in our walk as we take these little snapshots week by week of just seeing how God moves and seeing where we were and where we are now. So with no further ado, I don't want to hold. I hope I did a good job of explaining what the blog recaps are. I know
did.
Not as good as my sister. Hey, man.
No, you did a beautiful job.
But BSG, what were your thoughts on what is forgiveness part 2?
I think one thing my brother neglected to tell you, he might have said it. I also wanted to make it clear, like his name is Bible Study Brother and I'm Bible Study Girl, but that's because we're siblings. I was listening back over podcasts and I was thinking to myself, if this is somebody's first time listening, I don't know that they would necessarily be able to tell our relationship to each other. I'm sure they would get that we're close, but not necessarily know, okay, this is my brother, like legitimately, not like, you know how you have friends and like, that's my bro. And like, no, this is my brother. We grew up in the house together. So I just want to make that clear. I think the only thing you didn't say was that this is part 2 of our discussion about the big fight that ripped us apart, but also I think it did a beautiful job of mending us individually and helping us to be our best selves or better versions of ourselves, because I feel like my best self ain't gonna be until I'm in heaven and got my resurrected body and stuff, but to be better versions of ourselves. So this is part 2. If you missed part 1, you can go back, guys, go back and listen to the first podcast that we did discussing our epic fight. It was my written take of our disagreement, what happened, how I felt about it. So you can go. The podcasts are available on BibleStudyGirl.com. If you do want to just go strictly listen to the podcast, you do have that option. There's a tab at the top. There's a pull down menu and it'll says podcast. So you can click on podcast and you can go back and listen to the ties that bind. And that is part one of this discussion, because I don't want you guys to feel like you missed anything. And I actually just went back to the ties that bind last night, and it was good. It was a good discussion. It was a meaty discussion. I think it was a needed discussion. So what we talked about is fresh on my mind, and it's kind of helping me filter through my feelings when I read What is Forgiveness. So I know that's how this typically goes, but I'm being my brother because he makes a long story long. It's supposed to be long story less long. So
Oh
I'm
man.
really we've really switched roles today. Because I like to be as quiet as possible. And then so anyway. Um so it's hard for me to separate who I was then and then the emotions that reading your blog now, after coming fresh off of listening to the ties that bind last week and reading through your emotions, I think it's refreshing for me to get your take. Last week I feel like we really dived into your feelings about the disagreement and the things, the struggles that you went through, and then reading it pulled back up because it's definitely super fresh.
Mm.
And this week, reading yours caused some feelings to rise back up. Not to the point where we can't have a discussion. I think the beautiful thing about it, and we touched on it last week in last week's episode, is that we don't have to have the same opinions about everything. We don't have to have the same thoughts, but even in our disagreement, we can come together and still be family, still love one another, and then not just be like a hey, how you doing situation, but for me and you to really continue to truly have a good relationship. So going back through and reading What is Forgiveness and reading the words that you have no regrets and you standing strong in your decision.
We are the same person because, like I said, that was my triggering point last episode. Just to clarify, is just like when you was like, and you did the exact same thing, which was the first thing you said before we even got into it was just, you got to
I still
agree to
feel the same
disagree
way.
and whatever, and it was just like, you have a quick moment where it's like, but that's agreeing to disagree. So you feel, I mean,
That
it's the same thing.
it is the
It's just
same
like,
thing. Like we are agreeing to disagree. I will, yeah, we're agreeing to disagree.
yes.
It just is, it is what it is. I will say, however, I feel like in our agreeing to disagree, I could be wrong. I feel that part of me feels like maybe I extend more grace and towards you than I think than you extend towards me, in that even though we don't agree, do you feel like, I'm trying to figure out the right way to say it. Even though we don't agree,
Do you feel like I can understand your perspective or why you
correct?
felt the way
Yes.
you felt?
Right? Do you feel like you can understand my perspective, or no, not at all?
Um, I felt like I could understand parts of it,
Right.
but the biggest issue I was having was like, and I've said this
Do you feel
sometimes.
like I think, okay, this is a better question. Do you feel like I violated? Okay, so when we talk about the heart of the disagreement, do you feel like you were most angry at me because you felt like I violated your trust?
Not only that you violated my trust, but then you made it, from my perspective, based off of your traumas, and then like removing every action that I've ever done. It felt like you only saw me as, it felt like you saw me as vindictive. It felt like you saw me as like, oh man, my whole goal was to hurt y'all. Like that's how you came off. It didn't, and that's why I would be like, it's harder to understand your point because that's not me. It's like you never even attempted to see what was going on or how I like actually was doing it or why I wanted to do it or why I what basis and foundations was I moving off of to do it. It just felt like this did this and this did this and I did personally did not feel the grace you don't feel is what I didn't feel because I was like, you've literally made me out to be a villain. The biggest is how it like the biggest villain, and on top of like, even if I can't anyway, but yeah, that's all I can say because it's getting too close to like
We're
having
getting
to like
yeah.
say
Okay,
details to
so
explain
so
it.
what I
Yeah,
was gonna say to you is I think I would say that we have existed and we live in a lane where we are agreeing to disagree and we're moving on with life. Because, I mean, it is what it is. You can't turn back the hands of time. You can't unsay the things you said. You can't make those things disappear. They still exist. They still live in the air, you know. But like you talk about in what is forgiveness, having holding on to those things is the things that cause us to be sick, is the things that cause further division and having to reach a point where you let things go so you can be healthy and you can grow. But I do think there are definitely I think there's room and space for us to have further conversation because I don't know that you necessarily really truly understand my viewpoint. And I don't know that we ever reached a place where we could really truly talk about my viewpoint and why I feel the way I feel. Because, like you said, you felt like I didn't extend you grace, but I also feel like you didn't extend me grace or even recognize the situation that I was put in. You know what I'm saying? Like the things I had to juggle in my brain. And so I definitely think there's still, go ahead. Are you going to
I,
say something or
I
you?
was gonna say yeah. What I'm saying is a lot of times like. And maybe, like I said, we do need to have that conversation because we never really had a conversation about those aspects.
No, we never did. And I think it's just because we were trying to get to a place where we could even just tolerate each other.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And then it was like, well, it's done. But I do think
yeah,
I feel like there needs to be a
yeah.
conversation about, okay, well, and I think it's easier to have that conversation now because everybody emotions
Yeah,
ain't all high,
yeah.
sky high.
I'll say this and then I'm gonna let you finish your thoughts and stuff on it. But I think the biggest thing to me at that time that was yelling was you didn't do this the way that I think that you should do it. And by the standard that I set everything under, or everybody would set this standard, everybody. And it was like, but I'm not everybody. And I'm not even trying to end up in a place where I'm trying to put people in bad positions. Like I'm clearly asking for the things that I know a lot of people have not respected and done, in terms of whether it's time to do this or time to do whatever. Is like that's not even what I'm asking, because I still kept the word that I was saying after that, in terms of timing for like doing the stuff that I wanted to do. So it wasn't just fully what you were expecting. Like I wasn't like, it wasn't like I like was coming in lying and trying to overextend or overexert. I really was trying to at that point, like, no, I'm doing this and this is gonna be the timing and this is what's gonna happen. Um and I just in a lot of that felt like I said, once again, this is another moment of I don't fit into this mold you're trying to make for me, and I just can't try to fit in it. I can't Like it hampers me to a position of what am I it brought up the, like I said, am I your sibling? Am I your example? Am I the only, like it made me kind of so confused as to the understanding of like where I am, you know what I'm saying, in terms of like being seen or something like that. So
Get that. And I will say too that I feel like one important thing that we definitely were able to establish from this disagreement, and just even from reading your take on it and your side of the disagreement, is just we had severely unhealthy boundaries. And it definitely was an instance where all the unhealthy boundaries collided. I mean, there was nothing to stop them. And so it really had the potential to be super catastrophic for our family. I'm glad we got to a point, and were able to move past and move beyond it. But I'm also, I can't lie. I'm not mad that it happened, because it could have been something else. You know what I'm saying? That was catastrophic. And
yeah,
like, if it
and
had to be anything, like,
but that's
I'll
why I'm
take
saying,
this.
but that's why I said at the end, like, bruh, if it at the end, or I get there when I get there, but it's not my turn yet. Go ahead.
Um, so of all the things that could have happened, I'm glad that it happened, and I'm glad that it happened at the time that it happened. I think if you had not been getting married, it would not have put such a, because I can hold grudges
Mm-hmm.
and hold them real long and hard. And one of my hard lines was, and I know it was difficult for Kanae, because I'm not mad at her, but like she said, you mad at my boo, so therefore that means like, what kind of relationship can we have? Because you don't really like him right now. But I think your wedding coming up definitely made me have to. It definitely made me have to face, like, what is this relationship going to be long term between me, and like, what would be the best and the healthiest way to handle it. So it definitely was having that timeline and a crunch, because I did not want to go to your wedding. Like, that was
Mm-hmm.
like a big thing for me. Like, and I know it hurts your feelings to say that, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to be there and have to, like, you know act like we were good and we weren't.
Yeah.
And um it was a big push for me to do some real deep digging on the inside, and to do some major work and figure out, like, okay, these are appropriate boundaries to have. And you can set hard boundaries, but that
Mm-hmm.
might not be a hard boundary that you want to set, because if you set that boundary, you are setting it up for, like, okay, I don't ever want relationship with you again. So you need to really figure it out, evaluate, and dig deep. And so I think having that timeline in place, what you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, I think sometimes when you set those hard boundaries, you set them when you're setting them with God and understanding what boundaries you're setting and what you're allowing Him to take care of and control. I don't think you have to worry about the other part, like how you were saying, like, because you're doing it in in the ways that are like, hey, I love this person. I don't think that I'm able to convey to them what I need to convey to them. I'm going to get out of the way and I'm going to allow you to do it. But I need to protect my spirit, or I need to protect whatever. And I don't know. I'm just kind of like explaining, like, I get what you were saying, but I think sometimes for people, when you're setting these hard boundaries that you need to kind of set, when you're setting boundaries with people, set boundaries
What
with the expectation that,
But what I'm saying is, I was setting a hard, okay, me
oh,
not
okay, okay, I
coming
get
to,
what you're saying. No,
I'm talking about me
oh
personally.
no,
I
okay,
was,
now I get what you're saying. Okay,
yeah,
I get what you're saying.
I was setting a hard boundary about coming to your wedding. Like,
Oh no, I heard now, and that would have been the one
again,
for
that's what I'm
me.
saying. Like,
That would have been the
my
one for me.
therapist,
Not that I wouldn't have understood, but if like that would have just let me know, like, okay,
that's where we at. Okay. And so that's what I'm saying. My therapist was saying to me, okay, you can set that hard boundary if you want to, but you ain't you ain't gonna be able to come up out of it, is what he was saying from
yeah,
your point of view. Like, if you set this boundary, then you setting it up. Like, there will be no in between
right,
for y'all. So you can set it if you want to, but you need to be aware of the consequences of setting this hard boundary. And so having somebody to talk to that was not a part of my family, that did not really have a vested interest. Not saying that my therapist doesn't care about me, but at the end of the day, he goes home to his family, and my family's problems are not what he's thinking about.
mm,
So that's what I mean when I say who doesn't have like
yeah. No,
you know what I'm
I get
saying?
what you're saying now. I thought you were just speaking about boundaries in general, and people
Oh no, because
people
I've had to
needing to
set
set
I had to
boundaries. You know
set
what I'm
I
saying?
had to set a hard boundary with my biological father. Like, there's
Yeah,
no back and forth between us.
right.
You don't get to come in. You don't. You just don't. The Lord would have to remove that boundary. I'm not going to continue to set myself up to be hurt
We'll
by
talk
you.
about this in the blog recap because in the next blog recap that y'all listen to, because there are certain anyway, you saying that and then reading that blog and like certain things that you put in that blog, I was like, okay.
Oh, I'm interested because I don't know. I'll
Oh
have to
yeah,
read
you'll
it
see,
before we
you'll
record.
see. As
But
soon as we get there.
so I think it's always appropriate to have it. You make a great point because I always want to be clear because it's just me and you here having conversations. So I know what I mean, but I do want to make sure that what I'm meaning is actually coming across
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
appropriately. Like, and that's why I said earlier, that's what made our relationship as a family so broken, is because we had all these incorrect boundaries that we set up. People we were keeping out that needed to be let in, and we were
Mm-hmm.
letting people in and needed to be let out. And then we had a boundary around us three, and that was making it hard for other people to come in. So all these inappropriate boundaries leads to a life that's full of chaos. And that's why our disagreement led to a place of extreme chaos, but it also gave us an opportunity to really deal with, like, what does forgiveness look like. And like I said earlier, we haven't reached a point where it's like you fully understand where I'm coming from and I fully understand where you coming from, but I had to let that stuff go in the interest of my own personal health, my mental health, and really focus on, for me personally, just work on you, Sarita. That's all you can do. That's who you
Mm-hmm.
have agency over. That's who you have control of. Work on you. And so I'm interested to see, like, how your views have changed, what you think you've worked on, how you think you've grown since the time that we had our disagreement, or do you even feel like you have grown?
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
all those type of things. So I'm done with my little spidaddle, my spiel. Take it away, bro.
So where I was at when I wrote this is, at first I didn't necessarily want to talk about it. Because in a lot of different ways it was opening up insecurities and self-esteem and everything that I had been battling within our relationship again. And I had to kind of find what God would have me to say. Because when I read this, I was like, I just had this moment like, I wrote this? Like, and reading through and kind of understanding what I was getting through and what I had like learned at that point in time, right? And a lot of what I learned in that moment and when I wrote it was, because when you started the blog, it was after he who said not be named and the end of that situation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I've had my time to be what I wanted to be and what God had asked me to be in the midst of all this stuff. The biggest thing, at that time was just to learn those lessons. Like that was the lesson of like, hey, this is what I learned through these things and through the actions that I have gone through with God for my sister. Where I'm at today in terms of our conversation and things that I'm like listening to as we listen. So the other part that was difficult for me growing up, and it was made purposeful in this way. You've made mistakes, what you would consider huge mistakes.
Huge mistakes.
Never once did I do this. Never once was I like, and there was it wasn't just because I felt like I shouldn't be able to say, but because at the core I knew you were trying. At the core I knew, like I wasn't like in situations that were harmful to you. Outside of one where I was like, and it's like you didn't even see me at that level. And it's like because we definitely at that point we're not on the level where you saw me as a person who my care and concern about you matters in a certain way. You just was doing what you wanted to do. You were selfishly in a place of this is what I want, and this is how I carried out this action.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I was never like I don't think I could have said any of the things to you that you said to me about the situation in those parts. Because what you were saying is like, well, this is what this does to this person, and this does this to that person. Well, during those situations, that did a lot to that person, and I couldn't give you what you're giving me at all. Like I don't know who could have given you what you gave me, and
You mean as far as like anger level?
no, not anger level, the expectation, things you said, like in the same situation. Like you would give it to yourself in a certain way because that's what you felt, but dealing with and let me make this simplified. Simplified version is what I learned, and what I learned today is to continue not doing that because that just
To continue
boxes
not doing what?
not responding in the way that people respond to me.
Got it.
It just don't have to I don't like it garners me nothing to always meet somebody's energy with the energy they give me.
That can be hard to do.
Um
That takes a definite level of maturity to not match somebody's energy.
and I mean with you I never did. With you I always was like, bro, this is really crazy and really not you. But I never had at any point of you making a situation that you knew clearly was a mistake. I don't, and maybe you can tell me if I have. I've never made you feel like you were an idiot. You were hurting everybody else around you. I gave you full reign at all times outside of like, no, we finna go handle this to just do you. And because you're older than me, I mean, then this is why I'm saying like that. Like, I
Let me say this. I think one of the things that I think you neglect to understand about our disagreement is that I'd already made that mistake. And so I wanted you to learn from what I
but
did.
no, it's not that I don't. What I said to you was you see this as your mistake in the exact same way, and I'm not you. Like
Got
you
it.
see me as making a mistake exactly like you did, and I'm not.
Okay.
Like not even like spiritually, I'm taking this step. I'm doing this. I've done this. Like none of it is the same. The only same is the action of like what it was, but like that's the part that I feel like you don't see. It's like, no, I see it. It's just not the same mistake. It's just
And that's the
not.
part. And that's the part. I think there are a lot more similarities than you, for me, there are a lot more similarities than what you have. And it's not not to dredge up old feelings or to get people aggravated. And that's why I say I think it is something we do need to discuss in like a calm,
Yeah.
level-headed way. Um, and I think that's the part for me that's missing that you don't see. Of course, it's not tit for tat. It's definitely not. It's not the exact same situation at all. It's not. But I think my thing was, I think I felt like I had shared with you, like you said, it's not my shame. It is not my, you know what I'm saying? It's not my story. And maybe I was projecting my feelings on you, but I felt like I had shared with you enough to make you be like, you know what? You know, I might
See,
not
the
want
thing
to.
was, and we'll talk about this when we finish the episode proper.
Okay.
There were spiritual reasons that I was doing that on top of everything because I knew where I was going with. Again, I knew what I heard, I knew what I was doing, I knew like why I was doing it. Now, granted, I can see now that a lot of this stuff was juxtaposed to what was going to happen after the decision, clearly,
Right.
because I knew why I wanted to do it then, and I knew what was like going on, and like it was whatever, but it was like it was so blatant to me that's like, no, I see it, I'm not missing nothing. I think that because I'm not like, oh, now I'm changing why like I did it, it makes it seem like I feel like if the only way that you'll know I got it is to have changed the decision or changed the
I
action.
Well, here's the thing. I think honestly, there's one thing you could have done that would have taken my heat down. Still would have been like, like, huh? But there's one thing I think you could have done that would have had me being like, okay,
Is it
that
say, hey, I'm thinking about?
no, not even that. But we'll talk about it.
Uh,
We'll
but
talk
I
about it
mean, but it's like
off the
because I'm
air.
like, if
But
it's
the thing is, that's why I said like we really needed to learn boundaries and what's appropriate. Hey, we all make our own choices, and I don't have agency over Joe. Joe's his own person. Joe's gonna do what he's going to do. And Sarita has agency over Sarita, and Sarita's gonna make the choices she wants to make. And 100%, knowing me all your life, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do.
yeah, and I
Period.
was like, and that's why I was
Period.
like, and that's what made it so hard and made me feel so. I'm like, bruh, you literally did this, and this, like situations that I'm like, you, if we're going by your standards of things, you out of line. And then on the other
I
end,
think what you wanted me to react to you the way that you react to all of my crazy or all of my
the way that
decisions.
I think it's a respect level. It's like I get it. No, I don't like and did not like some of those decisions. They didn't work for me. But I
None of
also
my
knew
decisions work for anybody. Like,
but I also knew and understood like, bro, like what does like trying to shape you. I can't. First of all, you don't value my opinion enough to me to be even able to shape you in any kind of way. Second of all,
you talking about at that time or present day?
uh
Is it still like a mix of both for
present
you?
day, I could probably say some things that you will listen to,
Mm-hmm.
and there are more things. And like I think I said that like in reading your initial one, learning more of my importance and how that's kind of changed, and you've said stuff that has kind of garnered the place of understanding. Like, oh, whew, I can say stuff and she hears me, and it's not just in one ear out the other. You too young, you're younger than me, you don't understand, I'm big sister, you little brother. Like, you are way better at that, and I praise God for that, because that's something I have always needed. Like, to not be seen by the person you feel that's most important in a way of individuality, in that you are an individual and not their project, is the most freeing thing for our relationship that I've ever
Yeah,
had in life.
I think so.
So yeah, no, there's so much in terms of growth that happened. It was just more so, I think, that it was like, bro, like I'm not that. Like I'm not like I don't move like that. Like my movements ain't based in I'm trying to forcibly do something that is against all that these ain't red lights I'm looking at when I make my decisions because of how fearful the both of you have made me in life. It's, I thought about it. I thought about this part. I thought about that part. I knew what I personally needed for me. And for once I'm making a decision and it's like, hey, yo, like, in sharing, it was like, one question outside of, I think, immediate offense and like, well, what is like, yeah, well, this is what I'm doing. Like, I just want to, get some time. Like, this is why I did it because everything else is everybody else's. It's not mine. It don't have
I
nothing
get
to
that.
do with me.
I
It's
got
gonna
it.
have everything to do with this, and it's gonna have everything to do with that. And it's like, also, you are the same person as me in this regard, and I'm not going into this knowing like, because I know I'm just gonna slip, fall, sin, and do all of this other stuff. Like, I know what I'm gonna do because I know myself, and I know, especially with this one, this blessing I've been given in terms of having this one person, the only person who has ever like pulled me forward spiritually before anything else, has pulled me forward spiritually, like without the existence and God ushering in my first relationship with her in that regard to what it was. I don't get here
Right.
because I don't have I don't have the individuality that is required to survive. I don't. Because everything, my identity is involved in solely the two people who have always been with me. My identity is what they say it is. My identity is like feeling like I'm not capable of doing stuff and feeling like it's not going to be enough to even satiate those that are there. Like, and then feeling
Do
like
you
a mess up on top of all that.
do you still feel like you have those issues, or you feel confident in
No,
standing on your
I'm
own?
way better than that because I mean, like it used to hurt me so much. The Michael Alucci that hurt, and like it didn't seem like nobody cared. Like for a while you calling me big guy hurt, and like there were so many like things where it's like, bro, I don't want to be that. If Michael Alucci is the viewpoint of me, like and I'm like, fam, like I'm trying to like escape that, and you again like it's like, what am I supposed to do? Like I felt like I was just
I
supposed to walk
feel
out of the house a millionaire or something to be like, I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this. That's how it made it. That's how it was made to feel. I know that that's
right.
not like the reality, but
That was not my intent, or I don't know. We could talk about so many things, but I'm done with the
yeah, we're done.
fight.
Uh,
Thank God the
yeah,
fight is over. I think there's definitely room for us to grow and talk, but I also feel like there's room for us to have a genuine conversation without the innuendo, so I can
yeah.
clearly, so we can have a clear understanding. We still gonna be on our different sides of the fence. Of that, I'm pretty sure, but I just want you to let you know what my intent was. It may not have come off that way at that time, and to see if you can get some perspective on the reason I felt the way I felt about different aspects of the disagreement. And we talked last episode about how it's not, you can coexist with somebody and not agree with them. You can be in a relationship with somebody and not agree with them. And I think some things take time and perspective. I think the longer we live, the more we both experience and grow and kind of see. I think it kind of helps us see where somebody else is coming from. And I think we can have this conversation not from a place of heatedness or aggravation, but like really maturity. And like, this is why I feel the way I feel. We may never come together and agree, but at least we can talk to each other, not from a place of anger, but truly from a place of, okay, this is my viewpoint and this is why I felt that way. And yeah, I lashed out because it triggered this, and this in me.
And I think overall, like sometimes you got to understand that God has whatever He has for somebody, and sometimes like confirmation or not, it don't mean it's gonna make sense to you. I say this in one of my songs. that, you know, even if you gave me the reason you took my family members away in that way, I might not agree with it.
Right.
Like, and that's the point where it's like I'm stepping into a place that ain't my place anyway. Like the whatever conversation spiritually in their souls you had with them is for you and them. And I'm
Right.
supposed to continue walking in my purpose. And a lot of times that's hard, especially like when people let disagreements and things lead you, when you let your anger, when you let your hurt and things lead you as opposed to letting God lead you in a situation, you can cut yourself off from things that are going to build you, the things that are going to make you better, and you can cut yourself off from understanding. Even in trying to do all of this stuff, you can make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes because sometimes, I mean, the flesh is weak.
The flesh is weak. Let me say this too. My therapist tells me I get myself in trouble quite often because I'm always trying to make sense out of stuff.
Yeah.
And he was like, sometimes, he was like, you worry yourself down trying to make sense out of stuff that don't make sense. Everything is not gonna make sense. Like
Uh,
you
th- th- this is an argument we have because what's funny is I'll say I've been saying it was without you saying I've been saying this mantra to myself, like when me and I get into an argument about something, and I'll be like, okay, and it drives her because then she's like, well, what are you upset for? I'm like, because it's a thing, it's a family thing at this point that I'm understanding. If it don't make sense to me, like it's cool, it ain't gotta make sense to me. And when I say that, she'll be like, but I don't understand why you're upset. And I'm like, because it don't make sense to me. And I rage out when something don't make sense to me. Like if I'm trying to fathom it in my brain and put it together, and it's like, I try to use, like I said, that mantra and things that he's saying, even though I had known he had said that to you. And it's like, but that's where I came naturally of just trying to get more, because it's a lot of stuff that just, it don't ring. I don't get
But
it.
honestly, that even translate into my that translates. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with that word, but that translates into my relationship with Christ. He don't have to tell me why, and you hit on it. He don't have to make sense to me. He told me to do it, and I need to do it. And I'm actually struggling with two things right now in my life. Three, three prominent things in my life that I'm trying to make sense of.
Mm,
And Mama sent me a video yesterday, just basically saying, and it was a good video. Just like God don't have to make it make sense to you. Just do what He asked you to do. And so, um, I guess I'm giving that message to somebody else out there. Like the things that God is asking you to do or calling you to do, or even some of the situations in your life, they may not necessarily make sense, but you still have to trust God in the midst of all that nonsensical stuff. And I'm thankful that I decided back in 2017 to trust God in this situation, in our disagreement that didn't make sense to me, because it's made me, like I said earlier, a better version of myself, not the best version, but definitely a better version. And it helped me to establish healthier boundaries. Lord, we still got a ways to go when it comes to healthy boundaries, just like as a family in general, and even just me personally, establishing healthy boundaries, being able to recognize when I'm doing things that are unhealthy. So, my prayer for everyone is that we reach a point um, where we can live lives that are healthy, whole, full. That's my mantra. That's the thing I keep saying over and over. But I have a passion and I have a heart for people to live their best lives that they possibly can while they're on earth. Of course, our life on earth is not perfect. We're not going to really experience, ultimate peace until we get to be with Jesus. But yeah, better. And my prayer, my hope is that the Lord uses our disagreement as a testimony to what He can do when we follow Him, even when it don't make sense, when we lean into Him, even when it doesn't feel good, because He was able to bring us from a place of true disconnection to connection. We're bonded. We don't agree about everything, but we do agree on our love for each other. We agree on our love for Christ, and we agree. Um, I don't know. I think there are so many things that we agree on that the disagree is not the big thing.
Yeah. And also I wanted to make sure, because I didn't mention this, because I guess because we had got to the point to where I think the the us standing on what we did distracts us both into these tangential rants that I be forgetting the stuff that I be wanting to do. Because I was actually really happy, because I was like, I read through it and was like, yeah, 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 um, but two things I want to mention before I do my little spiel and get on out of here is that, my sister is my superhero for me. My sister is Black Girl Magic personified. And it was the hardest thing when I have to stand and be alone and be isolated and trust God more than I trust the superhero you gave me. And even if she don't think she a superhero, and a lot of times she just think I'll be hyping up, I just create whatever I create. But for me, it was the reality of seeing somebody accomplish stuff. The reality of seeing somebody that put in hard work, put in hours and time, and didn't allow me a lot of times to see that she didn't want to do certain things. She might say it, but her actions would always speak to following. And that's the one thing I learned is just, it's you follow, you do what has been asked of you. And it might have been like, I know that that's what God wanted me to notice most about the superhero that is my sister is when I ask you to do something, you have to do it. And regardless of whether, the times where she wouldn't do it or she would go off on her own, the light that shone the brightest in terms of her spirit was trust and follow and walk where he asks you to walk. And, every bit of information that has been imparted upon me from you and mom was always filtered through the spirit, always, in a way of like, no matter where I was, what I did, if I went out, I was out here acting crazy or just out in the world trying to do something, I still am like moving in a way that's just like, I don't really like that. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing this. Like, we not doing that. No, because of what I saw in front of me. So if you want some more encouraging words, make sure you go to BibleStudyGirl.com, where there are blog posts Sunday through Friday. On Saturday, the podcast comes out that you guys are listening to now. We appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in with us. Make sure you're going to our YouTube channel. I believe there's a link. If there's not a link, Ree will put a
There
link.
will be a link.
There'll be a
Since
link.
you've given me a heads up, I can definitely ding 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 add
So
that to the description.
there's a link down in the description for you to go and subscribe to the channel. We're going to start putting up shorts here very soon. Well, they might already be up by the time y'all are actually getting these. We'll be doing some shorts just to kind of get some kind of content flowing and going on the channel. But go and subscribe. We are pushing to get to our 100 subscribers, so that way we can get our custom URL. So that way the reality of me saying go to youtube.com/BibleStudyGirl will be true, and y'all will be able to do that. If you want to hit us up on the social media accounts, you can go to Bible Study Girl, the number 2 on Twitter. You can go to _ Bible Study Girl on Instagram, but you can go to Bible Study Girl, our Facebook page. You can message us there if you would like for us to pray for you or put you on a prayer list, or if you'd like to be on the show as a guest to talk about your testimony.
Yeah, we want to hear about your faith journey, guys. I think that's one thing I pushed really hard. Season 1, season 2, the Lord told me, girl, I didn't tell you to get everybody up on here. I told you to talk about your story because y'all know I want to be in the background. But if the Lord places it on your heart to share your story, and I'm going to let you finish your spiel. But if the Lord really truly places it on your heart to share your story, I really want you to reach out to me and let me know that you want to share your story. I definitely want to open the platform. I was talking to Bible Study Mama, and then I promise I'm going to let you get to your spiel. But I was talking to Bible Study Mama, and like I said, I'm going through some stuff and I'm trying to cycle through some things and making decisions. And I was telling her one thing I am for sure, and one thing I know is that I am supposed to tell my story because so many people have shared their story in their lives with me over the years. And those moments, they weren't like big things, they
Mm,
were little things, but they literally changed my life in so many positive ways. And I don't want to hold back somebody's blessing because I'm refusing to speak out or say what the Lord told me to say. I don't think I'm uh Joe calls me a superhero, but I just think about all the superheroes in my life that really changed my life. Y'all may never know their names. Shoot, I don't even know some of their names, but I always want to let you know if the Lord has placed on your heart that you need to share your story. We are here to listen to it and to talk with you and dialogue with you. This is God's show, his journey. Because if I had my way, I would be sitting watching TV right now, not talking to y'all. So I'm being
mm.
obedient and doing what he asked me to do because I really want you to receive whatever God has for you. So if you feel led to share your story, share. Okay, that's it.
And last but not least, you can also contact us at BibleStudyGirl2019 at gmail.com. And I'm going to start this phrase and saying for the end of the podcast, mostly because it gets too hard to try to figure out what doesn't preach. So the one thing that doesn't preach for how I'm going to set this up from now on, the sign out will be wallowing in sin ain't preaching,
It's not preaching.
but we preach.
And until we meet again, guys, keep preaching.